RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Iron Debate, a long-awaited episode of Iron Debate. This is going to be one for the Brainiacs, as we are joined by two of the top minds in the bodybuilding industry. We will introduce them in a moment, but first we go down to Cape Coral, Florida. Dave Palumbo. Dave, this is an episode, one where you can really delve into the art of nutrition and supplementation that the fans have been asking for.
I'm smiling because I know that everyone's been asking me to get Milos on, and we want to talk about insulin, and I said, well, who else can we get on to talk about it? And, you know, we just had Ameen, Alai on our show last week, and I said, you know what, he'd be perfect. You know, he was one of the first guys using insulin back in the 90s with Milos on his clients and stuff like that, as well as myself. So I figured the three of us would be perfect. I might not be at the mind level of these other guys, you know, seeing that, you know, Milos's moniker is the mind, and Ameen is the mad scientist, but I'm just Dave. But I'm happy to be here and be a part of it.
As mentioned, we will first go to Fullerton, California, and introduce the man they call the Mind, Milos Sarcev. Milos, welcome to the show. Fans have been asking about you for months now. We finally have you on Iron Debate.
Well, it's good to be back. Thank you for having me. I told Dave I love his show. I love Dave as a person. I highly respect his knowledge, as I said at Olympia. Yeah, so even though we don't see eye to eye on some issues, especially probably about insulin, which we'll see, you know, later in this debate. But yeah, I'm always happy to be here, share the knowledge, and get into debates. You know, how can we learn unless we consider each other's opinions and get deeply into it? So I'm here to present mine, which I believe it's right, but who knows? That's it.
Wise words from a wise man. Let's go out now to Denver, Colorado. The man they call Mad Scientist. You saw him last week on Live With, and ever since then, you've been blowing up our inbox to get him on Iron Debate. Well, now you have him on Iron Debate. Ameen, Alai. Ameen, how you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show again so quickly.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it again. The big word, whenever it comes to Milos, and you ask Dave about his theories, it's always about insulin. So we're going to go to that one first. Milos, we're going to go to you first on this one. Why should a bodybuilder use insulin?
Okay, I'll tell you this. I did a lot of research back in my former country of Yugoslavia, and we had a lot of access to Eastern German, DDR, right, Romanian, Bulgarian, Russian, you know, protocols. And, you know, in most of them, I've seen insulin. That's back in the days when, you know, I would say like 70s, late 70s, 80s. So at that time, I was, you know, trying to figure out why insulin, right? Why would that be as a, you know, PA, like a performance enhancement, you know? So could it be applied to bodybuilding? And then when I did a little bit more research, I've seen, okay, it's strongest anabolic hormone in the body, one that stimulates absorption of nutrients, storage, not just carbohydrates, as I think Dave said the other, you know, about a couple of months ago in some of your RX interviews. It is directly related to uptake of amino acids as well. So, you know, when I did my calculation, I said, like, okay, can this be applied in the bodybuilding? And obviously, being from a medical family, my father was Dr. of Science of Neuropsychiatry. My sister is a laparoscopic surgeon. My mother was general practitioner. And, you know, medical families usually have friends. They're also, you know, medical experts. So I got in touch with some endocrinologists and sports medicine doctors. You know, to make long story short, you know, I asked them, like, would it be logical to apply insulin, you know, for muscle building and hypertrophy? Everybody agreed, yes. It is high enhanced protein synthesis, you know, inhibited protein degradation. It's a potent storage transporter. So can we just apply it? They say yes, but they didn't know how. So I started researching myself and experimenting, right? And for me, I remember my father originally contradicted exercise physiology as a science when I was telling him how I train, you know, what I do. And he told me, like, you know, son, don't you think that you're missing out the biggest opportunity to create a muscle, because let's just clarify what exercise physiology was teaching us, that you go to train, you have intense weight resistant training, you deplete your glycogen storage, you break down muscle tissue, you have those micro tears, you deplete ATP, amino acids, everything, and then you recuperate and replenish all that. So he told me, don't you think that if you think about it, driving all this blood into the exact muscle that you're training, and let me again mention this: human, mans have a 5 to 6 liters of blood. It's usually distributed, all over the place, but maybe 10% is in a muscle at rest. In training, especially weight-resistant training, that hyperemia, increased blood flow to the muscle, reaches astonishing 60, 70%. So if you're driving all this blood in the exact muscle fibers, you're having a muscle contractions, and every muscle contraction opens up the cell, they're ready for uptake. If you have nothing in the blood, I was saying you're sending the empty blood, nothing can happen. But if you saturate with every possible anabolic, anticatabolic, fat burning, or beneficial in any way supplement or nutrient, and you have a high amount of insulin, most storage hormone, is going to be driving everything into exact cells of the exact fibers, tissues, which is muscle tissue that you're training.
Milos, I wanted to get Ameen in here real quick. Let's get your thoughts, Ameen. Again, the general topic, insulin. Why should bodybuilders use? We'll delve into some deeper topics, but give us an overview from your opinion.
I mean, he said it. There is no misunderstanding about that. Everything that he said is absolutely true. I wouldn't be able to even word it any better. He did a great job of saying it. Thank you very much. That was very educational, because what he's saying is that, and when insulin is present, everything else gets basically, shuttled into the cell. Okay. And if you want, a better workout, then all those things are very important. So, bodybuilders, to take this to the next level, that's just one of the reasons why I like them to use it. The other reason, and the main reason that I like them to use it, is in conjunction with growth hormone to create IGF-1. And I think that also should be very regulated, but on that level too. So on those two, what he said, and then in addition to what he said in creating IGF-1 also.
Let me ask you, before we go to Dave on this one, what is your principal disagreement when it comes to insulin from what Milos believes as far as use go?
I think because I don't want to disagree with Milos, because I want
Where may you differ? How about that?
Okay, but let's do this the other way around, because I want him to clearly state exactly what he says before I say anything, because I don't want to be misunderstood about what I've heard. He and I have never spoken. We've never communicated. We know mutual colleagues and people that have been clients of his or mine and then been his, but we've never spoken. So I would like to hear from him what he's saying before I.
Sure. So, Milos, I'm going to go back to you on this, because again, you've watched the show Ask Dave, and you've seen the many programs in which users will ask Dave, regarding your theories on insulin. So in your opinion, so let's go to that. Let's go to that angle.
Yeah.
Where do you feel as if you and Dave, from what you understand, what you've seen, where do you differ as far as insulin usage in the body?
And again, let me just clarify this. I have a great respect for Dave. Now, if I disagree with something, right, I'm going to tell you what. I've seen a lot of programs that he did with some of the guys, suggesting insulin like first thing in the morning, far away from training. So I said this in many of my interviews. Insulin can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Depends when you take it. Okay, if you take it around training, when I just mentioned, you create that increased blood flow to the muscle, hyperemia. Constant muscle contractions in saturated environment of blood is filled with all the nutrients that can be transported and inserted, shuttled, as Ameen said it, into the tissues. This is when insulin becomes your best friend. Taking insulin, especially fast-acting insulin, let's speak about Humalog, Novolog that has an onset in 15 minutes, peak 45 minutes later, strong action 2 hours. It's out in 4. If you take it at a time when you're inactive, now you are praying to God that this insulin is going to be shoving those amino acids, glucose, where you would want them to be, which is muscle tissue, which usually doesn't happen in a state of rest. So at that point, now insulin becomes your worst enemy because it can create fat accumulation. So this is my main disagreement there. Besides that, yeah, I agree with Ameen. There is synergetic actions of growth hormone and insulin, but there's a lot of debate even among the experts. Like when should we take them? Do we take them together, considering they are counter-regulatory hormones? So as they counter each other, should be taken together. So this is one thing of the debate. But now that I mentioned Dave, I want to be fair and give him a chance to respond. Because these are the programs that I got from many of your athletes. That this is what you suggest. Taking it in the morning.
Well, before we go to Dave, you had your hand up. You wanted to come in.
I just wanted Milos to just, if you wouldn't mind, I hope this isn't asking too much, but I'd be willing to do the same thing if you would, because we're not actually giving people advice. We're just what we talk about.
Yes.
But if you could define what it is that you would identify with yourself as this system, your protocol for insulin, in a nutshell.
What I do? So the main principle is what I was saying exactly. You want to use insulin for the maximum benefits. I talk about, we can all create some results. There's a minimum, optimum, maximal results. So if we are really true to ourselves, we all want the most in the least amount of time. So we are after maximal results. So if you ask me, what would be more beneficial if I go to the gym right now without taking insulin, 45 minutes before the workout, or taking that insulin 45 minutes before the workout, and then saturating my blood with exact nutrients that I want them to be transported during that training into the muscle fibers of the muscle that I'm training. So if anybody would disagree with me that it's more beneficial, maybe breaking down the tissue, emptying, therefore causing a reason for supercompensation, or this, I would tell you, I done it with the hundreds, probably thousands of guys around the world, and I've seen, what I do. Now, keep in mind, how in industries like this, if guys like Gustavo Badel, Mustafa Mohammed, Dennis Wolf, Dennis James, Hidetara, Silvio, come to me in my gym, and then within a month, they improve dramatically. What is it? There's some secret formula. It's not secret formula. We did this on a video. They would, drink the pre-workout. They would drink during workout. That's the only thing.
How many grams of sugar?
Okay,
that's the question I wanted to know.
So here it is. Yeah, there are two different things to consider. One, how much sugar do you really need in a training? So do you need half an hour before I do 45 minutes before a workout. I do the insulin shot. Humalog. I can go from 10, 12, 15, 20 units. This is what I've been doing with the guys. 10, 12, 15, 20. Now, 15 minutes later, because this is already onset on what do you call it, Humalog, right? If your blood sugar level is low, because let's say you're maybe on a ketogenic diet, you had a low blood sugar level to begin with, it can drive you to hypoglycemia. So this pre-workout drink has to consist amount of carbohydrates to just take you to that 30-minute period when you're going to start training. So I usually put 20, 30 grams.
Is that calculation based on the amount of insulin?
Yes, it's based about the insulin, but also timing, because really within 15 minutes, if you try, because I was a guinea pig myself, you shoot it and then you don't take any carbs to see how long you can last.
You go hypo before you need to take something.
Yeah. This is, as I said, initially, nobody was able to tell me how many grams of carbohydrates you need per unit. So I was guinea pig myself. I just had to guess.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then
I want to get Dave in on this. Dave, again, you've heard what Milos had to say about his initial overview about insulin used in bodybuilders and where he feels as if viewers ask about his differing opinions to yours. Care to respond?
Yeah, I want to clarify some of the science. First of all, I agree with everything he says with how insulin works. Okay, and yes, it drives glucose into the muscle cell. The amino acids piggyback on the glucose, and that's how they get in there. 100% in agreement with that. The question is, why do we need extra insulin? Okay, theoretically, the beta cells in our pancreas will produce enough insulin given the sugar load or the carbohydrate load that goes into the bloodstream. So if sugar goes up because you're taking in 200 grams of carbs, your pancreas should put out enough insulin to absorb all that.
Yep.
Likewise, we have to also understand the fact that around the workout, when you train, the training effect actually causes the receptors on the muscle cells to produce what's called GLUT4 receptors. GLUT4 receptors enable your body to absorb glucose and thus amino acids without the need of insulin. So around the training period, you don't need as much insulin because your body is producing these GLUT4 receptors. Now, let's add in the professional bodybuilder who's taking a lot of growth hormone. What does growth hormone do? It's an antagonistic hormone to insulin, like Milos said. So when there's a lot of GH around, insulin can't do its job as well. It can't get to the receptors because the growth hormone is inhibiting it. So what happens invariably is we, as elite athletes, we're eating a large carbohydrate load with our protein, throughout the day, and we're not absorbing all the sugar out of the blood because the insulin, our pancreas can't produce enough insulin, especially when you're on over 4 to 5 IUs of growth hormone a day. We noticed this. And I noticed this back in the 90s, and Milos and I discussed this in Dubai before it was ever looking like Dubai today, about how much insulin we should take. And we talked about Humalog and Humulin R, and that's the protocols I was using and he was using. And what I was trying to basically do is overcome this insulin resistance. In other words, I don't want the beta cells to not be able to do their job, because if you don't absorb these nutrients, like Milos said, then you can't grow. Okay, so what I figured out was that, rather than use Humalog, which is a very fast-acting insulin, I took something that was fast-acting but not too fast-acting, Humulin R, which had 2 peaks. It would peak initially, and then 2 to 2.5 hours later, it would peak again. And if you did that in the morning, and then 5 to 6 hours later, when it stopped working, you did it again, you get another 6 hours of coverage. The 12 hours you're awake during the day, you have extra insulin on board to enable your body to absorb the carbohydrates that it probably wouldn't be able to absorb, okay, because of the fact that there's so much GH present causing this insulin resistance. Now, this is only the case in people who eat a lot of carbohydrates. A lot of pro bodybuilders and top athlete bodybuilders out there don't eat a lot of carbs. They don't eat ridiculous amounts, because if they do, they get fat. That's just not them. So insulin is not for everyone. For me, the way I understand the science of it is it's ludicrous to take insulin around the workout, because you already have the ability to absorb as many grams of carbs as you want, because you have GLUT4 receptors plus your natural insulin production. So to me, there was never a need to do that because of the risk of hypoglycemia. Now, I know what Milos does is he keeps basically pounding sugar so that you're feeding the insulin. To me, that doesn't build muscle. It's just facilitating, you're just solving a problem that you've created yourself.
I think I'd like to say that, in all fairness, I'm not sure, Dave, and I'd like to ask you, I'm not sure. Did we talk about insulin before you talked about insulin with Milos?
Did you and I talk about insulin?
Yeah.
We might have. Why, do you agree with me?
He touched on it during the live with us.
Because it's the exact same thing that you're talking about is what I evolved from initially using the L version with Don Long, and we used L. I mean, it was basically, like you said, it was like multiple shots of R in one day with 1 shot of L. And, for the most part, it was off season. He was eating carbohydrates consistently, and the shot was always after the workout.
Right. Now here, just to add, I want to just finish what I was saying. Now, that was my initial, that's how I've always used insulin. Now, recently, I've rethought some of the ideas about insulin, and I said to myself, well, if guys are going to take large amounts of GH and they're going to be insulin resistant all day long, that would technically include the night. Even though they're not eating large carb meals at night, their bodies are still producing glucose overnight via gluconeogenesis in the liver, and the GH is still around creating this insulin resistance. So I'm thinking maybe, like you just said, A long-acting insulin like a Lantus or a a Levemir might be something that's prudent to take every 12 hours to give the body the ability to not burn its pancreas out and have something else on board to keep blood sugar levels lower. I just don't think that pounding insulin and sugar around the workout time is gonna make things better. If you can do the glucose and the amino acids pre, intra, and post workout anyway without the insulin, it's not necessary, and that's just how I feel about it. Milos, you're more than welcome to respond.
I'm dying to jump in, but I'm respectfully waiting. First let me ask you this, Dave, did you ever try it actually, intra-workout?
No, because the one time I took a shot.
Wait,
listen. The one time I took a shot before the gym, I went so hypo in the gym that I couldn't work out, and I don't feel good. I didn't like the fact that I had drinking tons of sugar in the gym. I don't feel good while I'm training. It makes me nauseous.
That's what happened to me.
I would say some bad joke, but we are live, so I don't want to do that. Yeah, but anyway, let me just put it back on everything you said. Number one, why would you take, and I respectfully said that Ameen said the same thing, he used L. When I started, the first article that was published in Muscle Media 2000, back in the day, I don't know, 94, 95, yeah, there was my article. And back in the day, if you read it, there was Humulin R, NLU, there was, numerous different things. Chad Nichols was, as you guys know, and I'm sure that Chad is going to see this anyway, so there's no secret. When I discussed with him, there was no Humalog or Novolog available at the time. There was just Humulin R. Right. And the way I recommended to him, and that's how he was doing with Ronnie, everybody else, was 3 Humulin R shots, 8 hours apart. Okay. Now it's Lantus. Before was N, the long-acting that peaks several times a day. Again, why did I evolve to the fast one? Exactly the opposite of what you're saying, Dave. I don't believe for a second that using insulin is going to burn beta cells. It's going to save beta cells of pancreas. If you take insulin first and then you take sugar, post, that insulin is already working. Your blood sugar level is not going to even go up because insulin is going to be disposing it. Otherwise, beta cells are going to start producing so much insulin, and then you're going to have a hyperinsulinemia, and you're going to for sure go into the hypoglycemia. So I was switching from longer acting to the faster. If there is faster, I would use even faster than this one, because why count on the long acting that's going to peak several times a day when you want it and maybe when you don't want it, just when it's scheduled to peak. Instead, you boost it when you need it, which is immediately during and post-workout. This is why I do it 45 minutes before the workout and then immediately after the workout. This is my protocol. Now, if you train twice a day, yes, I would have you do that 2 times a day, morning and evening. So at that time, again, if you shoot Lantus, you would hope it's going to peak exactly when you train. How would you know exactly when it's going to peak? You don't. But when you shoot Nolog or Humalog, Apidra, there are some more now, I don't even know recent developments, but those are good enough for me that we have accomplished tremendous results with just about everyone. Now, don't confuse also need of circulating glucose for a workout and what would insulin at a time of training do. It is, as you know, even doctors in the hospitals, when they want to drive something out of the blood, they immediately shoot you with the IV insulin to drive it out. So if I saturate the blood with all this so-called shit, right, everything that we put in, that insulin is guaranteed going to push this into first available cells or first available tissues. Now, contrary to your program, when you're sitting and watching TV, my guys are training, contracting, and shuttling all this into exact place that you want to shuttle into the muscle. So that's the difference. I believe that you should potentiate insulin at the workout and immediately after. As you know, 6 hours after the workout is still physiological preference of your body to replenish. But you have an instant punch during a training. This is my concept.
But Milos, the problem is that your body already has a natural way of repairing itself post-workout. It's called GLUT4 receptor production, and that's why it's so easy to get nutrients into the muscle cells post-training. You don't need help then. the worst thing you can do is want to drink sugar while you're training, because all the muscles, all the blood is shuttled out of the internal organs. They're all in the muscles. It's very hard to absorb nutrients while you're working out. And you know this for sure. Your body repairs itself 24 hours a day, even on your days off. So it's silly to say that you wouldn't need insulin in the morning when you're insulin resistant because you're taking 10 IUs of GH. So it's silly to say you only need it during workouts. The only time you don't need it is after a workout, because that's when you have the ability to absorb sugar and glucose and amino acids without the need for insulin.
I disagree, and I'll tell you why. You're saying this about GLUT4 transporters, equivalent to humans can walk. Yes, we're walking, or can run, or can get in the fucking Ferrari and drive, 1,000 miles an hour. So that's the difference. You can count the GLUT4 transporters to, put that uptake of glucose into the cells, or you can shove it in with the sonic speed.
Yeah, but you know what? You could blow up an anthill with a nuclear device, so you could use a firecracker. There's a lot less collateral damage with the firecracker.
There's also
guys. Let's get Ameen in here. Ameen?
There's also sugar toxicity that we're not addressing. I'd like to say that what Milos does works. It does. I'm personally not, and I don't want to be offensive to anybody. I'm not a fan of the muscle that looks very full and not striated. I've seen a lot of muscles. Sometimes I think some people grow too quickly. I'm not really sure what some people were doing who recently died. I don't know what their protocols were, but I know that one of them grew very quickly. He was a young man. He grew very quickly. And I saw that his muscles, I think they were growing to the point where they were losing some of its structural integrity when it comes down to each individual fiber. I was seeing that the fibers seemed to be more thicker than the usual, thinner aesthetic looks. And I think this is some more evolved look that growth in insulin has taken over with the look of bodybuilding. And you can see that the look of physique competitors or classic physique competitors, it's kind of where they didn't really use these drugs. Their fibers are still a little bit more compacted. So that what he's saying is true. I do believe that what Dave is saying is true. I think that it's dangerous. I can't work out being hypo. And I personally don't think that taking sugar is healthy, because I also believe that when you do take sugar, because we're not diabetic, our pancreas is still going to secrete some sort of insulin, and you're going to always be playing catch up with the sugar and the insulin until it goes away. What we were doing was using low glycemic carbs, and we were using quite a bit of them, and they weren't producing enough insulin. And because we were taking growth hormone, like Dave says, the body's ability to deal with the insulin wasn't very well. And so by taking insulin, not enough to shuttle anything that wasn't unnecessary into the muscle, other than the nutrients that were being timed throughout the day selectively. It did evolve from taking longer insulin, like it was first L, and then it went to NPH and R, the N and R, and then I've done Humalog too. I find Humalog to be beneficial if you're on a very, very low carbohydrate diet and you want to eat just enough carbs that you can have the insulin not make you go hypo, and you still get the effect that counteracts the growth hormone. So it's a dangerous line also. But because it's so fast, you can resolve it very quickly by eating something small. And because it's just maybe 1 or 2 times a day, if you're on an overall low ketogenic diet, you can do that. So there is merit to both systems. I believe they both do work. I think there are dangers to taking insulin, and I think it all relates to the amount of glucose that's in the blood at the time. So that's kind of always got to be the underlining key factor, is no matter how much insulin we take, when we take it, how we take it, whether we're taking it wrong or whether we're taking it right, we have to have enough blood sugar in our body to even deal with it, or else we will go hypo, and that could lead to death.
I agree with this. Can I just jump in and do a quick question?
Go ahead, Milos.
If you are, on ketogenic diet, as you said, or it's just like combination of carbohydrates and fat, and use long-acting insulin. As you know, insulin is not selective; it's going to insert everything. So it's going to transport those triglycerides as well. This is the reason why I stay away from long-acting, and I just use short-acting and specific nutrients for that part. This is the reason why you mentioned low glycemic carbs. There is, all kinds of stuff. If you want to go to the particulars, glycemic index or glycemic load and all that stuff. I have a high glycemic carbohydrates with the high glycemic load, shitload of carbs at that time, and I just, bomb it with the insulin and shove it in. It's gone. It's done. Job is done. You stay away.
The pump is amazing. I know I've done it. The pump is amazing. I mean, you get an amazing pump. It's very full. I just find that it kind of goes away a little bit afterward. How do you feel about that?
I think the problem is we're not addressing is also with most people out there, if you jam hundreds of grams of sugar into your muscle with insulin, most people's glycogen stores are filled up way before the sugar runs out, and then that extra goes into fat storage. Long-acting insulins don't just say, oh, we'll take a couple grams of this sugar and we'll put it in fat, a couple of this and put in glycogen. What happens is the glycogen stores fill up first. Once they're full, the extra, the spillover, goes into fat storage. So if you're overeating carbohydrates during the day, and with Milos' system, it works great on these super freak bodybuilders who have crazy metabolisms and they metabolize carbs quickly. You give that to a person with a slightly slower metabolism, they're going to get very fat from doing that. And so I like what Ameen said more about timing the exact amount of carbs you need throughout the day and doing it in a slower fashion, because then what we're doing is we're ensuring that we're filling up glycogen stores. And if we notice that the person's getting fat on the insulin, then we can cut back the insulin and cut back the carbs a little bit so that we don't overfill those glycogen stores. So I don't agree necessarily, Milos, with what you said, because in most people, your protocol would make them fat.
Okay, let me clarify this now when you said it. How much is the capacity of a muscle glycogen storage in the average 220-pound guy?
Have no idea. It's impossible to quantify.
750 to 1,000 plus, but how much glycogen or glucose you can burn in one workout?
Who knows? Everyone trains differently.
I mean, Dave, as you're saying, yes, I agree with you theoretically. Once your glycogen storage is filled, excess carbohydrate would be converted into the fat. And this is another subject. And I went to some clinical nutrition classes and all this stuff, and they were pushing that de novo lipogenesis, conversion of carbohydrates into fat, not being efficient under normal circumstances in humans. Let's say they're measuring 10% of total amount of carbohydrates can be converted under normal circumstances. In this instance of a filled glycogen storage and abundance of carbs, it can be much more. So I agree with you that if your glycogen storage is filled, then those extra carbs are going to be converted and shoved as a fat. But that does not happen if you go into the crazy workout, my type of workout, and it's very intense, heavy duty plus giant sets. I guarantee you burn 200 grams of carbs. And I can guarantee, because long ago I was actually fighting the guy that was stating this, now a very good friend of mine, Charles Poliquin. 20 years ago, he was suggesting immediately after the workout taking 200 grams of dextrose. And I even said in one of the interviews, who is this fool, stating this and why, right? So that's a Charles putting 200 grams of dextrose, glucose immediately after the workout to replenish the glycogen. And then he was showing me some studies, what 6 sets of 60% maximum squat, how much glycogen deplete. But let's say that you can deplete 150, 200 grams of glucose or glycogen in a training. Glycogen, if you have no glucose and you're efficiently using glycogen storage, or you're going to be taking amino acids and they're going to be converted. That's a subject we're going to talk about when we do supplementation. But insulin alone, Dave, I'm not trying to argue for the sake of argument. This is something I highly believe it, and I put every single pro guy that that competed at Olympia on the stage on this program. I did it myself from 1993. I would say publicly, if I have to go to the gym and I do it without insulin, it's like almost wasted workout. I know I'm not maximizing. So in the beginning of this interview, I said, if you really want to truly maximize it, you're going to kill yourself with a different muscle contraction, different stimulation, all that stuff during a training with a kind of program that you do, and then you have a maximal nutrition to support use of 15, 20 units of insulin. You're going to put 2 pounds a day easily, and most of the guys that pros that I work with, they put like 40 pounds in first month.
Ameen?
I think that there's variables, and I think these variables are the main things that have to do with the dosage. Okay, well, one of the variables is dosage. The other variable is the type of diet. If you're, there's a type of diet that you can use a certain type of insulin with. If you're eating carbohydrates consistently throughout the day, carbohydrates, not sugar, but lower glycemic carbohydrates, and then we talk about dosage on a longer release insulin and timing, which would be the third. And there may be more significant factors, but I think Milos would agree that these are all the relevant factors. And so the timing would obviously be with the workout, in his instance, or after the workout, and how much. With the longer one, it's still going to take more time to kick in. Okay, I've post-workout used both short and longer also. So short to get the immediate results, and I've used it both ways. Some of it with trying to load carbohydrates, like what he said, not to the excessive 200 grams, because I believe in sugar toxicity, but I'm talking like 30 grams. That's enough. And then use small amounts of insulin. So then we could go back to the other factor of dosage. I don't know what Dave is going to say about this. Milos said 20 to 30 units. That would take quite a bit of sugar. Excuse me?
I didn't say 30. 10 to 20.
10 to 20. I'm sorry. 10 to 20. That's throughout the whole 45 minutes before the workout, right?
At the time, yeah, and 20 after, yes.
Okay, cool. And so that would take a significant amount of sugar, of simple sugar, because it's a fast-acting insulin, so that would be the equation to not go hypo from that, okay? In this instance where I was talking about taking insulin post-workout with a low amount of carbohydrates, it was to get the amino acids to be uptake, specifically at that time, and also to create IGF-1 with growth hormone that you wouldn't, and he said, would you take them together? No, the growth would be before the workout, to where growth would be more effective, and the insulin would be just to help channel aminos, but just using a small amount of sugar or a small amount of simple carbs, okay, less than 30 grams. So I'm also talking about a very low amount of insulin, 5 units or less. So I think there's a big difference in the amounts, and because the amount of insulin that I'm discussing is such a low amount, there's no need to go higher on the sugar. I believe he's absolutely correct that the higher you go with the insulin, then you must go higher with the sugar. I think, and I believe I could speak for Dave on this, because I do recall us talking about this in the 90s, that when you do that, basically what you're doing is you're just taking sugar to not go hypo from the insulin. And I'm not sure whether that process is anabolic or not, but it makes me feel so bad that I don't see what I can get out of it. Now, he's got a way of doing it, and I think it's very important for the viewers to understand. He has an entire system. He has certain things that he's talking about you have to use. I mean, he's not mentioning all of them. So I would never be able to actually judge his system, because I've never done it the way he's saying it. But what he's saying is that it's much different than what we perceive, because there's all these other prerequisites that go along with it that make it so it's suitable for the environment that he's creating with the insulin. That's my understanding. Is that right, Milos?
Yeah, but I would first encourage you to try it. Now, you said that we are just taking so much carbohydrates to offset the insulin. Yes and no. I just mentioned how much glycogen or glucose you're going to burn in an intense workout session. I said 150 to 200 grams. So remember, as a fuel subset of utilization during the weight-resistant training, it's not the fatty acids, it's glucose. So you need glucose, for muscle contractions. Now, if you take 30 grams, as you say, which is more than, most of the people don't take any, they were just taking branched-chain aminos.
That was just workout. That was post-workout.
And during, you don't even take. I didn't ask.
From the meal prior to the workout, it would have sufficient amount of carbohydrates to sustain me through the workout.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying. Okay, respectfully. I mean, sometimes I express myself maybe in this respectful manner. I hope I didn't say anything wrong to Dave either, because I have a complete respect.
Nothing taken the wrong way.
No. All right, guys, let's.
Let me just answer this question. Because it's important. People that are listening, you probably don't listen when we talk. You just give us a green light and red light. For Ameen, why do I take so much carbohydrates? Because you're gonna burn. You see, if you don't have a glycogen storage available, no nutrients available, circulating glucose, you're gonna have to
Milos, do we have you?
I think we
Okay.
lost him. Let me.
Wait, Milos, do we have you?
Yeah,
I
we
think we
got
lost you for a second there.
I'm sorry?
Do we still have you? Because I think we lost you for a second there. You're talking, you got cut off.
I'm here. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're right.
Shit. I mean, I didn't
No,
move maybe 2 inches.
You
No,
just
no,
got cut
continue
off
with
for
your
2
thought.
seconds. Repeat what you said.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
No.
I don't know what you didn't hear because, as far as I remember, I was telling Ameen, I'm using so much carbohydrates during a training also because glucose is fuel for the muscle contractions. So if, I've seen this before, if you just take a branched-chain aminos, for example, isosinocymbalin, right? They're used to spare muscle glycogen. You know, this is the advertisement they had, and Ajinomoto was actually kind of bummed that I said this in an interview. Why would you use BCAAs without the carbs? Now, if you understand insulin, the highest transportation of amino acids, the insulin, top 5 amino acids that are being transported with insulin is isosinocymbalin, phenylalanine, and tyrosine. So 3 of the branched-chain aminos exactly directly correlated with insulin. You should use insulin every time you take BCAAs, or if you don't use insulin, put the carbohydrates with it. So carbohydrates can be used as a fuel, and the BCAAs can be used for protein synthesis for what they're intended to do. But just to answer your question, you use a pre-workout low glycemic carbohydrate meal, counting that this is going to take you to the workout. Yes, but how can you state that this was sufficient amount to doesn't create any breakdown on any compromise, for proteins, maximum protein synthesis, because you're going to for sure, be deficient if you're training intensely. If you have 70 grams of carbs, let's say before a workout, you're going to burn 150 during a training. Where is this 80 going to come from? Body's easily going to convert aminos into it.
He's right, but my workouts are very short and intense. That's
I
another
think
part. It's different systems.
I think another important point to make is, Milos, I think one of the points you're missing is that we're not talking about a guy who's got no glycogen storage before he trains. Assuming the person's eating right, their glycogen store should be topped off all the time. So when he gets to the workout, assuming he's fueled up properly, he's going to use stored glycogen. There's no reason to turn amino acids into glucose during a training session. If you got stored glycogen, your body's going to liberate plenty of glycogen into glucose to be available. So there's no reason to be pounding hundreds of grams of glucose. Likewise, your body's going to repair itself and it's going to restore glycogen after the workout's over, and it's not just going to happen in one sitting. It's going to happen over the course of the entire day. So I think it's ludicrous to have to jam everything in as if there's nothing there. There's no storage. There's no amino acids. There's nothing around. Now, I'm not saying that what you're saying on a limited basis might not be beneficial, but to put a ton of glucose into your stomach when all the blood in your stomach is not there because it's in the muscles working, to me, it just doesn't make logical sense. There's no reason for it.
So what you're saying is, if you have an empty room, muscle storage, and then you're going to take a carbohydrate, you would much rather put one by one the whole day and fill it up instead of just dumping it at once and filling up and finishing the job.
No, it's never going to be empty that much. I mean, how much could you possibly empty it?
Let's analyze your programs, because
my program involves a post-workout shake. You got to understand it's going to replace what you use during your workout. Only your crazy workouts use 200 grams of glycogen. Most people don't use up that much.
So openly, no. I mean, seriously, your diet especially was ketogenic type, very little carbohydrates. How can your guy have a filled glycogen storage at all times?
Milos, we're talking about off season right now. In the off season, I have my guys eat plenty of glucose and plenty of carbohydrates. Don't confuse the ketogenic diet with the off season where I'm having them eat carbohydrates. We're talking about off season. I wouldn't have anyone use insulin, on a contest diet, because that's to me is defeating the purpose of trying to liberate body fat. But I'm talking about off season when we're trying to grow and put muscle on.
And in 15 years of my bodybuilding career, I was eating no less than, let's say, 700 grams of carbs daily, and many times 1,000, 1,200, 1,500.
But you're a genetic freak. If you do that with most people, they'll be fat slobs. You'll never get someone in shape on stage on 700 grams unless they have a gifted metabolism.
Well, we're talking about this different metabolism, but we're talking just about glycogen storage. I can tell you this much, that you're underestimating or overestimating, glycogen storage of average guy. That yes, they for sure. What is glycogen? Stored energy, reserved energy. Not it's there. Body stores it in case it needs it. Why would you give a need? Give carbs. I usually ridicule this if it fits your macros, because I don't agree with it. But if you look at differently, if you have all the macronutrients at the right time in the right amount, and body does not compromise, that would be ideal. I don't like conversion or using reserve. Why would you use reserve if you can use fresh, that moment available, needed? So yes, it's there in case we need it, because we don't know, so we guess. So you're going to have less carbs during before a workout meal, because you can count on this reserved energy. Why? If I know that I'm going to burn 150 grams of carbs during a training, why would I mess with this? Why would I actually give the body a chance to convert amino acids? Because do you know for sure it's glycogen going to go first, or amino acids going to be converted, by liver gluconeogenesis?
Glycogen's always used first, so.
Huh?
Glycogen's always used first if it's available. Here, I want to pose a question to you. Just so people understand this, the rate-limiting step of glycogen storage inside the muscle cell is not insulin. It's glycogen synthase. The glycogen synthase enzyme inside the muscle cell is what limits how much glycogen can be stored in each cell. If you can increase glycogen synthase, you could actually store more glycogen in the cell. How do we do that? Well, the best way to increase glycogen synthase, or the only way that we know of, is to stop eating carbs. When you eat no carbs, what your body does is it thinks there's not enough glycogen synthase present. And so it starts producing more of it. So if you actually eat no carbs for 3 days in a row and then reintroduce carbs, you can actually superstore glycogen in your muscle beyond what you're capable of. And this has nothing to do with insulin. So theoretically, Milos, what you should do with your program is have guys eat no carbs from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then load carbs, and then make them do all their training on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you'll have even a better response, because now you'll have more glycogen in the muscle.
I got to interject too. Dave, I did that when I was 19 in 1992, but the difference was I carb depleted for 6 days, 0 carbs, 100 rep sets, maybe workouts like Milos's that are just insane, and then I carved up on insulin. And in that particular case, it actually did work very well. I got very lean and dry from it.
Because, come on, you're creating, Dave, what do you call it, survival mechanism. They devoid it, and then you're going to create more enzyme, and therefore, more enzyme is going to store more glycogen. Insulin is going to store glycogen 1 billion% guarantee.
No, it's not, because the limiting step is glycogen synthase. It's not insulin.
Yeah, but okay, if I shoot you with 20 units of insulin day in, day out for 3 days during carbohydrate loading, you want to say that I'm going to suppress glycogen synthase?
You're not going to suppress it. You're just not going to produce enough of it. You can't. In other words, by taking more insulin, you can't store more glycogen. You need that enzyme present.
Store that carbs in the glycogen 1,000,000%. How can you be so ignorant?
How am I ignorant? If glycogen synthase is the limiting step, and you put 100 units of insulin in, it doesn't mean you're going to store more glycogen in the muscle, because you can't store more than there is glycogen synthase there.
Just because glycogen synthase as enzyme is used for this theoretical approach, that you deplete it, so now you don't have it, so body produces more enzyme. Now, if you have a carbs, it can be store more glycogen. What happens if I load you with insulin day in, day out for 3 years total, and you're showing up on the stage loaded like Dennis Wolf was at the 2007 Olympia? Do you think that I counted on glycogen synthase to be that full?
Well, what I'm saying is that if you did deplete, that's why guys carb deplete before they carb up, Milos. The whole theory of carbohydrate loading is you deplete glycogen so that you create more glycogen synthase so that you can load the muscle at a much greater rate. You could pump all the insulin you want in, you're not going to create more glycogen synthase.
That's glycogen synthase. It has such a small equation in this shit that it's ridiculous to talk. Carbohydrates do. Now, if you have a shitload of we depleted for 3 days the conventional method.
Yeah.
And now we're going to carb up slowly, yes? Have you seen fully loaded bodybuilders on the stage? Like, I used Dennis Ford because that was one of the good examples. I prepared him for 2007 Olympia, and you see how full he was.
Right.
Okay? He did 5,000 grams of carbs in 3 days, and you can count the insulin shots that we did. So that theory for you, if you just particularly look at the science, and glycogen synthase is the one, the important one, it's not. You can shove it with the insulin.
So you're telling me that insulin, which just causes the facilitation of glucose into the muscle, is going to make the muscle store glycogen without enough glycogen synthase present?
Glycogen synthase is going to be there regardless of insulin or not.
No.
But
Milos,
insulin is going to...
You only have so much glycogen synthase present.
15-fold. What?
There's only so much glycogen synthase inside a muscle cell. If you put the glucose into the muscle and there's no more enzyme to convert it to glycogen, it's not going to do anything.
It'll convert to fat.
You explain to me then, if I inhibit insulin synthase, glycogen synthase with the insulin, and
you're not. I didn't say you're inhibiting it. I just say that you're limited by how much is in the muscle. So by you giving more insulin, it's not going to make your body's ability to store glycogen better.
It won't supercompensate at that particular moment because it's already been fed carbohydrates for multiple days. But what I do see is people getting insulin resistant. They're eating a lot of carbohydrates. They're continually taking more insulin. They have to take a lot more insulin to eat the more carbohydrates. And that nobody really does know what the dangerous effects are of that. We do know that doctors say that you should not have sugar with carbohydrates. And so I wanted to ask you this for a long time. What do you have to say about that? Just that one question about the fact that doctors say that you should not.
What is the first cause of type 2 diabetes? Frequent and high elevation of the blood sugar level, which occurs only with sugars, yes. But this is exactly my point. So if this is a type 2 diabetes caused, right? And then now you have natural athletes that are going to do this glucose polymers, whatever else, you are risking them to become diabetic. Unless you shoot them with a fast-acting insulin first and let the insulin do the job, not the beta cells of pancreas.
I agree. I agree with that statement. Milos.
Do both of you think that in healthy males that do not have diabetes, if we take insulin and eat carbohydrates, that the pancreas isn't going to secrete insulin?
It's going to dramatically lower for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It'll give the beta cells rest.
I agree with that. But it's still going to produce some if it's sugar, if you're eating sugar.
I mean, I would tell you this, guys, even, okay, to give a little advertisement, there's some Indian guy, Dr. Najib. He does the classes. It's like $69, the lifetime supply. You can. He has the medical classes in his videos, and he showed the insulin synthesis, absorption, and everything how it functions perfectly. So I encourage you to see that. But yes, I'm just talking about something that I've been doing since 1993. Would I expose myself to the dangerous method knowing that I'm going to destroy myself? No. I had a father and mother and sister to consult. And after they said, like, okay, they don't know, but maybe, okay, if you do it, you have to create normal environment that your body is exposed to, right? So if you shoot insulin, you better have enough glucose to counteract that, right? So at that time, they also agreed that the shorter acting, the better. Longer acting, you're risking much more. And then you're limited, with a 24-hour period that now you have to eat specifically to counteract hypoglycemia. Here, I had a guys on Olympia preparation, and I would give them just that short-acting insulin and carbs for these 4 hours.
Right.
I want to just say one thing to wrap this up, because I know we're running out of time, but I want to just say, number one, Milos, I tremendously respect your knowledge. I also respect the results you've gotten with your athletes, and I think your methods do work for certain people, and I want to just go right on record as saying whatever arguing and debating we're doing here has nothing to do with my friendship with Milos. We're solid as a rock. I appreciate and I respect what you bring to the table and that you're not afraid to try new things and put it out there. Same thing that goes with Ameen. So I just want everyone to know that whatever we argue with here, we tell the truth, we speak our mind, and that's what makes the show interesting. It has nothing to do with how we feel about each other as friends. That goes outside of this.
Of course, Dave. I love you. You know that.
I think now I know why he's the mind and I'm the mad scientist. Because his family was doctors, they were telling him do this, that, and I was 18 years old in 1991, going to get a bottle of insulin, trying to figure this out on my own because I read all these books at the Library of Congress on how it functions and all this stuff, and of course Dan Duchesne's book, and just trying to put the pieces together. So kudos to you, and we were both in two different parts of the world. And, I think that's good that we can at least put some light on the subject on what our opinions are.
Yeah, I mean, this is just to conclude. This is no argument whatsoever. You just got to understand, of course, I'm very passionate about what I do. And I believe it not just because it worked for me, it worked for dozens of pros and hundreds of other guys that I train. Now, of course, I do agree with Dave, all different individuals, and it doesn't work exactly the same for everyone. But for somebody, if I'm going to have a potential pro, some amateur that is grinding to get the pro card, and he's going to tell me, Milos, how can I the quickest possible way, get the pro card? I would say you have to maximize everything. Maximize nutrition, maximize supplementation, training, stimulus, all that stuff. So from the very beginning, I say, I would really feel that right now, Dave, if we go to the gym, and if I go without insulin, I would already beat myself into the training. I say, okay, I cannot maximize now because I don't have a transporter that's gonna push it into my muscle. Even though
Dave, I think we might have a series on our hand. How about the show title, Milos and the Mad Scientist?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
We have look, the guys. If you're willing, we have a lot of questions that fans want answered. In regards to your opinions, where you differ, and obviously Milos. Given so many questions regarding your difference of opinion with Dave, we'd love to do this again if you guys have the time to pass.
Sure.
Yeah, anytime. I said to Dave, I'm available 24/7. I was actually trying to reschedule today, but he says, no, I need you. So, okay. Yeah.
So we're going to plan this again. So a lot more to look forward to from Milos Sarcev and Ameen Alai. For Dave Palumbo, Milos, Ameen, and our producer, Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next.
Thank you.